From the controversial Sabrina and Harvey to the lovable Dustin and Suzie, here are 5 of the best and worst on-screen couples in hit shows on Netflix. Watch out for some spoilers if you're not up to date with current seasons. A strange case of Steve and Nancy. When it comes to love, it's hard to be objective, but some cases of on-screen romances can clearly be identified as disastrous. A peculiar detail about Stancy is Steve's transformation throughout the relationship. The awesome pompadour was definitely part of Steve's charm and panache, but it also screamed, "I'm a douche," from the moment we saw it. Thankfully, this was deceptive, as it turns out later he's actually a very sweet guy. However, his jealousy often stood in the way of his and Nancy's happiness. Remember that time Steve saw Jonathan hugging and warming up Nancy with a blanket? His jealousy led to horrible graffiti being painted about Nancy being unfaithful to him. Although he didn't draw it himself, he definitely didn't stop it. And yet Nancy was the one who broke Steve's heart. Every time Steve screwed up, he tried to make things right because he really loved Nancy. But no matter how much he tried, it was useless because of one small detail. Nancy just wasn't that into him. However, they parted ways amicably after all, and that's why their case is so strange. They're good friends, but just didn't work out as a couple. Although we're looking forward to finding out if Steve gets a new love interest in Season 4, no matter what happens, he already has someone very special, his new friend Robin. And as the previous seasons have shown us, having a decent friend is sometimes much more important. A case of Riverdale nonsense. Riverdale storylines get crazier and weirder with each episode, dragging the romance plotlines deeper into its abyss. While we all loved Season 1 for its Beverly Hills teenage drama vibes and mysterious spirit reminiscent of Twin Peaks, each season since has gone further away from normal teenage relationships. However, in all that madness, there's one couple that has managed to keep it cool, and that's Bughead. Betty and Jughead became the most beloved couple of the show because we fell in love with each of them separately first and foremost. Betty is smart, passionate, curious, and lovely, while Jughead is a thoughtful guy who looks like he needs to be rescued and taken care of. And Betty is perfect for that role. We felt sorry for both of them when Betty was heartbroken over her unrequited love for another boy and Jughead was struggling to survive and didn't have anyone looking out for him. The moment when two broken souls connected to support and help each other was the most touching thing on the show. The way they often held hands, how shy they were walking down the street together, and their first tremulous kisses. That's what made them the best teenage couple on the show. And somehow it all managed to change into some crazy Serpent King and Queen nonsense, including a crazy cult heist and God knows what storyline in that Stonewall prep. Yet their bond is so strong, we still see them as #relationship goals. A case of two O's. Weirdly enough, Otis and Ola were actually a pretty good fit for each other. Ola's more confident and helps Otis navigate around his securities. And while Otis wasn't sure what he wanted from life, he was willing to be a great boyfriend and did his best to take care of Ola. Otis tends to overthink life and is a bit hectic, while Ola is chilled and more courageous. Although they balance each other out very well, Otis just wasn't ready for that. I mean, aside from Ola still figuring out who she is in terms of her sexuality, Otis just wasn't ready to be in a relationship. While he wasn't ready to confess his feelings to his major crush, Maeve, he decided to try to date somebody less complicated. And while it's normal that he wanted to move on and try to find love with another person, he didn't take into account that his feelings for Maeve may hurt Ola. So, although these two could possibly work as a couple because of their personalities, using a person to get over someone else is always a bad idea and a horrible way to start a relationship. Adam and Eric are the show's sweethearts, but they also had an unhealthy start to their relationship. But we'll have to see if our suspicions are justified in Season 3. A never-ending case of Dustin and Suzie. To be perfectly candid, any teen couple from Stranger Things is fantastic. We all remember Mike and Eleven's first tender kiss at the ball, laughed out loud every time Max dumped Lucas, and rooted for the girls standing up for themselves while the boys exchanged dumb advice on dating. But there's always going to be one moment that will outdo all of those. Dustin and Suzie are the epitome of cuteness throughout the entire show. When it turned out that Suzie was real, our hearts melted when we realized how long and how hard Dustin had been trying to reach her. When you're an adult, you know how hard a long-distance relationship can be. So it's touching to see a kid diligently building a whole radio receiver and spending hours trying to call his girlfriend just to hear her voice. Isn't it the most romantic and sincere thing you've ever seen? And that scene where they were singing the never-ending story, I mean, come on, is there a limit to their cuteness? Susie, Pooh, and Dusty Bun are the ultimate Netflix couple. A deadly case of Joe and anybody else. While the previous couples just had better soulmates around them, Joe is a sucky boyfriend no matter who he dates because he's a creep. And no, he's not that sweet creep Radiohead was singing about. Joe murdered his girlfriend, her sister, and her ex-boyfriend and tried to bury his other ex-girlfriend who turned out to be alive. If that's not enough to realize he isn't boyfriend material, we don't know what is. However, the writers managed to build up some complexity to the characters, so by the end of season 2, many fans had mixed feelings about Joe and Will and deeply cared about him. I get why people feel sorry for him, who knows what happened to him as a child, but the poor guy is still a psycho. Even Penn Badgley himself called out fans who are in love with Joe on Twitter, reminding them that he is a murderer and saying things like, "Kidnap me, please," is actually not funny. It's a good thing Penn realizes his responsibility and tries to draw a line between the world of fiction and horrible reality. An effing case of James and Alyssa. In both You and The End of the Effing World, we are following the stories of psychos falling in love, but there's a key difference that makes one couple lovable and another one absolutely disturbing. Despite some brutality and murder, James and Alyssa are less grim than Joe simply because they had to kill to protect each other. It wasn't out of insecurity like Joe's character in You. James is portrayed as a controversial character with violent inclinations. I mean, poor cats. But he went from intending to kill Alyssa to falling in love with her. This is a story of two similar, broken souls falling in love and taking care of each other when others, including their parents and society, had failed. It's the story of Bonnie and Clyde if it was written by Ken Kesey and filmed by Wes Anderson as a Moonrise Kingdom sequel. Though the audience is left to debate whether they are good people or not, one thing is certain, their bond is stronger than any other and there's no effing world for them outside their small universe. The lesson these two preach, I guess, is if you find your psycho who feels and sees the world the same as you, don't let him or her get away from you. A chilling case of Sabrina and Harvey. The biggest dilemma. Sabrina and Nick or Sabrina and Harvey? Both these relationships are pretty troubled ones, but one of them appeals to us more than the other. We don't want to disrespect fans on Team Harvey, but we have to go with Nick on this one. Of course, it's not healthy that, spoiler alert, Nick turned out to be a traitor, but he truly fell in love with Sabrina when he least expected it. Considering all that Nick has done, in our minds, he's still a better fit for Sabrina. They're not just boyfriend and girlfriend. When all of the glitter and excitement of first love fades, they still have a partnership of admiration and respect. And that's exactly what Nick and Sabrina have. He truly embraced her powers, in contrast to Harvey, who still seems to be afraid of her. Nick is Sabrina's real partner in crime who understands her abilities and is from the same environment. When Sabrina finally found the courage to admit to Harvey about her dark baptism ceremony, he made himself the center of the problem, saying, "Are you saying all this because you don't want to be with me? Boy, your girlfriend is going through extremely tough things and you are just not ready to support her. I mean, it's okay because it's too much for a mere human to handle, but that also means Harvey is not a good fit for her." I guess Sabrina's lesson here is that having an equal partnership is just as important in a relationship as loving each other. An enchanting case of Geralt and Yennefer. While Yennefer is a more developed character in the show than in the games, for example, the show's dynamic of Yennefer and Geralt's relationship is much more irresistible. The two have a very turbulent relationship as they go through lots of troubles, fights, and betrayals caused by both of them. And while it obviously doesn't sound healthy in real life, they are an ideal couple for a show because they are entertaining to watch. We just can't get enough of their dynamic and desperately want them to succeed, despite the fact that they keep failing each other, like fighting over the big baby question. The more disagreements they have, the more we want to root for them. There is a very enchanting chemistry, not just between Geralt and Yennefer, but between them and the viewers. And, weirdly, this is what makes them a great couple for a trending show. A divine case of Eve and Lucifer. Lucifer is the embodiment of fun, carelessness, and wit. Eve also fits these characteristics but fails to admit the core fact. Lucifer now has another side to him too. Both ignorant to the world around them, they used to have fun back in the day, but Lucifer has changed since he settled in LA and basically started a new life for himself. But when Eve comes back, her reckless behavior makes some of his old bad habits resurface. Instead of pushing each other towards evolution as mature personalities, Lucifer and Eve keep dragging each other back to old places where neither of them exist anymore. Remember that episode of How I Met Your Mother about the Riverdale phenomenon when Lily meets her old friend Michelle and they both start acting like crazy 20-year-old sorority BFFs? Although 10 years of evolution have passed since their college days, screaming and whooping is the only way they used to communicate, and they just can't help it. The same paradox happens to Lucifer and Eve as they only retrograde together. I guess the divine lesson from them is that people evolve, and you either evolve together as a couple, or one will always be pulling the other down. A Case with an E. First of all, Netflix is making the biggest mistake in canceling Anne with an E. Secondly, the story of Anne and Gilbert is definitely the most sincere, undistorted with false drama and inspiring relationship. While Gil is basically Anne's school rival, he turns out to be very sweet, and those small interactions that the two had, like Gil pulling Anne's braids and teasing her about her hair color, remind us of those sweet first school crushes we had. This is the most tender and sweetest age, when every note passed in class, every touch, and every look matters so much. Though Anne and Gil's story is not perfect, they deeply care about each other and carry this love for many years. I really wished they'd given Anne and Gil a chance for a proper end to their story on screen. So what do you guys think of this list? Who's your favorite couple? And who would you add to the list of best and worst couples on Netflix? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, stay awesome!